we subscribe to the belief, I definitely do, that quality improvement is data driven, but it's human dependent, right? Largely. So when we're building something new, it's dependent upon the humans. So something you bring out in the book is one common mistake is to think of change as only a technical issue. There is no such thing as a technical change without a social effect. And I think Duran said this, right? So can you unpack that and help listeners understand what social effect means and how they plan for that?
Yeah. So that quote actually comes from Marvin Weisbord, who wrote a great book called Productive Workplaces. So the idea, there's an old model called socio-technical systems, right? And Marvin was big in organization development and human behavior. And so sometimes, especially if you think like manufacturing or if you think about software, we create technical process or systems that operate in a certain way, right? Or that should operate that way. Southwest, I'm sure, modeled that process and did it somewhere in Dallas. They probably have some facility where they got people together to volunteer to pretend to get on planes and things like that. There's a technical element, and probably on paper it's fantastic. And then there's a human element of which, as you mentioned, Rex, I like to say, especially in human systems, like improvement would be easy if it weren't for all the people involved, right? Because it's easy to write steps and say this is the way something should work and create measures. But it's a lot harder when you have different people that come from different backgrounds, have different experiences, have different motivations, may have different limitations. And so, or ways in which they operate, different preferences and all kinds of good differences that exist in humans, right? So that's an important element, is that anytime that you're creating something, you have to think about how do I learn about the different people that are going to be involved in it, and how do I make sure that I build this so that I often say works for most people most of the time. You can't build something that's perfect for everybody, and it'd probably be not helpful for most people if you got it so that it was 100% error proof. But there are ways in which you can look at the population that's going to be involved in your process and try to figure out how do I make it work most of the time for most of the people, or you might decide that 80% is effective, because going to 95% effective would be painful, right? So 80% is good enough and keeps it loose enough that it works. And I think that's a key component, is appreciating how something works, who's going to be involved in it, and really bringing in that human element to appreciate that you want people to be able to work in this process and they're not all the same.